for other cultures, like for the Mayas, they understand their universe through their mythical tales, like the Popol Vuh. But there are many relationships between, for example, the perspective that science presents to us about the universe and the perspective that many mythologies in the Native America's world present to us. For science, the universe began 3,700 millions of years ago. It's the famous Big Bang. Everybody knows what's Big Bang today, no? Before that, there was no space-time, yes? And everything that exists today started its evolution with the Big Bang. In the Popol Vuh, they say that at the beginning everything was in darkness, as in many other myths, yes? So there was nothing, there was no difference. Everything was darkness, and in the middle of that darkness, there was a primal luminosity, a primal light. So it's very similar. The Big Bang, this primal luminosity. So even though now we can prove that the Big Bang existed, and we cannot prove that that primal luminosity that the Mayas talk about existed, well, I think that we can create bridges between those two perspectives. Yes. Well, this is a representation of the Big Bang. So this is the origin of the universe, and then the universe began to expand until our present moment. Yes. Our sun was created like 5 billion years ago, and we know that our planet was part of that sun process. Yes, we cannot not understand life on Earth without the sun. But then life on Earth started like 4 billion years ago, and something very important we just discovered these last centuries is DNA. You know, and why DNA is important? Because DNA is like a fractal, like an hologram. In each one of your cells, you have a DNA that has all the history of life on Earth, and I think that's very important because I think that scientific perspective is very similar to the perspective of the indigenous people of ancient Mexico. They didn't have a DNA, but they knew that everything was interconnected, yes? And they knew there was a close relationship between human beings and plants, human beings and animals, human beings and the sun, the moon, and the cycles of the universe, yes? Well, then human being appeared like 4 million years ago, like the Australopithecus, not exactly Homo sapiens. You know, Homo sapiens. Well, we are a very recent animal in universe. You know. These are all the perspectives of human evolution. I like more the next one. No? We're in problems. Yes. But, well, we have this great research made in different parts of the planet that nowadays all these red lines are the paths that human beings took from Africa. You know, we have this primal ancestor that comes from Africa. First it was Lucy, but remember, like 2 years ago they discovered another one that is much more older than Lucy. But they made this study through the RNA, yes, related with the DNA. But the important thing about RNA is that it's inherited from woman to daughter, you know, from mother to daughter, from mother to daughter. So they made this study of populations all around the world, and through their RNA, they were combining that RNA data with archaeological and linguistic data. They reconstruct the different routes human beings took to migrate all over the world. So now we know for sure that human beings began its life in Africa, that there were two migrations outside Africa, but because of climate change in those times, they disappeared. And then the third migration is the migration where we all come from. It doesn't matter that your ancestors comes from Europe or Asia or America. We all contemporary human beings come from the third migrations that started from Africa. Yes, and of course we know that the land that was most recently inhabited by human beings are the Americas. Yes. There are 6 places in the world where human beings created what we call civilization. And the oldest place is what nowadays is Iraq, Mesopotamia. Egypt is another one. Well, the map, the point is not very precise, but well, it will be like here. Of course, India, yes, China, Peru, and Mexico. 6 places in the world, few places. Mexico is one of those. Mesopotamia started civilization 5,700 years before present. Yes. Egypt 5,300 years before. The Indus civilization 4,600 years before present. China 3,900 years before present. And the chronological status of the Americas was very different from the data we have nowadays, and especially in Peru, everything changed when they discovered this great city, this great archaeological site called Caral. Caral is in the north part of Peru, and Caral changed you have been in Caral? Wow. Wow. Caral changed everything that we thought about the origin of civilization, because in all the other places, civilization was totally connected with agriculture. In Caral, it's not exactly like that. In Caral, the foundations of civilization are closely related with fishing. Yes, with fishing, and yes, agriculture of cotton and the trading of cotton with fish. So it's changing a lot the ideas we have of the origin of civilization. And also,
is it on the sea?
It's very close to the sea. Maybe you can tell us a little. I'm going to show you some Google Earth images. As you can see here, this is the shore of North Peru, and this is Caral. Yes, and it's at the side of a river. Yes. So before Caral, we thought that civilization in Mexico and Peru started at the same point. Yes, but Caral started like 1,500 years before the olmecs here. So that changed everything. And Caral is contemporary of Mesopotamia, of Egypt, of China, of the Hindu civilization. Yes.
And I heard it was based on peace rather than war.
Well, that's one of the other ideas that Caral is putting like in the discussion. So. And it was recently discovered, maybe 15 years ago. We began to hear about Caral 10 years ago. I think now it's a World Heritage Site.
5 years ago.
Yes, and well, now it's open to the public. This is a Google Earth image of Caral. You can see the main buildings, temples, plazas. Yes. This is a closer look. Yes. Also in the cultures that developed after Caral, the circular plazas, for example, were very, very important. Well, we thought that was like an invention of the Chavin culture. Well, now we know it was an invention of Caral people. It's a closer look. And well, then we have Mexico. So Mexico is like the younger brother of these 6 places in civilization. We know for the moment, maybe tomorrow there's a new discovery, and we discovered that the civilization started like in Caral. I don't know. Well, Mexico started its civilization cycle 3,200 years ago, and it started in what we call the Olmec heartland. Yes? The Olmec heartland is in the Gulf Coast of Mexico. You can see, it was not very clear here, but this is Mexico. You can see the Yucatan Peninsula, and the Olmec heartland is here. It's in the border between Veracruz State and Tabasco. And why we call it the Olmec heartland? Because that's the region where we have found the great ceremonial centers of the Olmec. But the interesting thing is that we can find what we call Olmec art all over Mesoamerica. We can find Olmec art objects even in the north part of Costa Rica. We can find Olmec objects in what nowadays is Mexico City, in Morelos State, in Guerrero, near Acapulco, in Chiapas. Yes. So we're going to see that what we call Olmec, it's a complex problem nowadays. We don't know who were the Olmec people. Yes. So this is the history of Mexico or Mesoamerica. We have 3,500 years of hunters and gatherers. Yes. Then we have this long period of what we call Mesoamerica. Yes, ancient Mexico. It's a period of 4,000 years. It's a long, long period. Then we have this small period of the colonial stage, the history of these lands, and then we have this little period of independent Mexico. So imagine, many people think that, as we were speaking yesterday, that when the conquest took place and the capital of the Aztec was conquered, this civilization was over. But no, we still eat corn, avocado, tomato, squash. All those plants were fundamental in the civilizations of Mexico. All those plants were domesticated in Mexico. We know that a squash, for example, was domesticated in Oaxaca. We have a very old archaeological evidence of squash seeds near Mitla. Yes, near, maybe you have been in Oaxaca, near Oaxaca City, Mitla. It's a very beautiful archaeological site. Archaeologists and anthropologists have divided the history of Mesoamerica, everywhere Mesoamerica, yes, because we can say ancient Mexico, but Mesoamerica, it's a cultural region that goes beyond Mexico. Yes, part of Mesoamerica is Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and even the north part of Costa Rica, as I was telling you. So, since 19th century, they began to divide the history of Mesoamerica in three great periods. Well, first in two, classic and post-classic. Yes, because the interesting thing that even though the Olmec is the oldest culture, is the most recently discovered. Yes. We didn't know how old the Olmec civilization was until the 50s of the 20th century. So they're really new. They are very old, but they are really new for us. Yes. But why classic and post-classic? Well, of course, because of a comparison with the old world. What's the classic? Who are the classic cultures in Europe? The Greeks. So when they discovered the Mayan cultures, they said, "Wow, the Mayas are for America like the Greeks are for Europe." So they represent the classic period of this civilization. And then they have this idea of the Aztecs as this, they compare the Aztecs with the Romans. Yes? So that's why they decided that the next period was post-classic, and they were always making relation of Greeks and Mayas, Romans and Aztecs. Yes? And also, like Romans, a little bit of decadence after the Greeks, the same. The Aztecs, like a decadence of the classic cultures. Nowadays, we are discussing that ideas. Maybe that ideas are not helping us to understand in a deeper way the cultures in this region. Maybe the process was not the same. Yes. So there are many archaeologists nowadays that are proposing different ways of dividing history. And then we found the olmecs and other cultures. So what is before the classic or classic? Well, so the green line is Mesoamerica. So you can see Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, part of Costa Rica. No? But this is very important. The north frontier, of Mesoamerica was always moving. Yes, and it's very important. For example, for Cañada de la Virgen. In the north, we have another two very important cultural regions. One is called Aridoamérica, the yellow line. That is the Chichimeca region. Yes, these hunters and gatherers, nomad people. Yes, and then we have this region called Oasis America, the Hopis. Yes, in the south part of the United States. What's the difference between the peoples of Oasis America and Aridoamérica? That in Oasis America they plant corn. Yes, so that's the big difference. But you can see that here we have this area where Aridoamérica and Mesoamerica were in contact. Yes. So what we know of Cañada de la Virgen? Cañada de la Virgen, as most of the archaeological sites in the frontier of Mesoamerica developed, how I say? Developed, thank you. Developed from the 5th century after Christ until the 10th century. And why until the 10th century? Because there was a climate change. Yes, and in that moment they were not able to plant corn in this part. So all the hunters and all the agriculture people went down from this line to this line. And that was the moment when Cañada de la Virgen was abandoned. And at the same time, hunters and gatherers came from the north and established in all these parts of Mexico. Yes? And that's why we have very strong Chichimeca traditions here in San Miguel. All the dancers with the feathers are of Chichimeca origin. Yes? But the people, many people think that the people that built Cañada de la Virgen were Chichimecas. No, they were Otomis. Yes. So here you can see these little dots are archaeological sites of the first period of Mesoamerica. The first villages, not the first cities, the first villages appear around 4,500 years ago, and these are the places where we have found this old archaeological evidence. This image here, I'm going to show you in a better photograph, but this is the oldest clay figurine found in all of North America. And as in every part of the planet, it's a female figurine. It's like the famous Venus that have been found in the old continent. Yes? So we have a long period between 2500 before Christ until 1200 before Christ, where we have these small villages developing. But something very important happened in 1200 AC. The first cities appear. Yes. Before that, yesterday we were talking about this region called Mesoamerica that have these basic principles present in all the region, but at the same time we have this great diversity. Yes. So archaeologists have divided the different regions and the different regional cultures like this. Yes. And why like this? Because in these different areas we have